What is biogas? How our trash can turn into energy. Brought to you by the Dickinson College Farm. For today's lesson, we will talk about biogas and sustainability. We will learn what biogas is, how it's made, and why it's important. But first, let's talk about energy. There are different types of energy sources. There are non-renewable energy sources, like oil, coal, and natural gas. These are examples of fossil fuels, and they are not sustainable. And then we have renewable energy sources, like solar, wind, biogas, and water. These are examples of sustainable energy sources. Take a second to think about some ways that you have used energy today. The reason why fossil fuels aren't great is because burning fossil fuels causes carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases to be released into the atmosphere. Those greenhouse gases trap heat in our atmosphere. This is one of the major causes of climate change. To keep the global temperatures from rising too high, we need to use sustainable fuel sources to help reduce our carbon footprint. Here's what we can do to help. You can compost. Putting your leftover food scraps and other biodegradable waste into compost bins is a great way to produce less trash and to be more sustainable. The reason we practice composting is because while you might not want to eat the leftover bits of your fruit and veggies, worms and microbes sure do. There are important nutrients in your food waste that other organisms can use to make energy. Fruit and vegetable scraps, along with lots of other stuff, can be put into compost bins. Composting keeps tons of waste out of landfills each year. Things that end up in landfills take a very long time to break down, but if the right stuff goes in compost bins, it will decompose naturally, and the mixture can be used as a fertilizer, or it can be used to feed the dragons and make biogas. Take a moment to pause this video and ask yourself, where could you put compost bins in your community? What are some other ways you could practice sustainability? So why do we keep bringing up dragons? Well, that's because dragons are what makes biogas. Biogas is made inside a biodigester, aka a dragon. It is a burnable gas that is made when organic materials, like food scraps and manure, are broken down in a closed structure or container that doesn't have any oxygen. The microbes that make biogas live inside biodigesters, aka dragons. They are extremely small organisms that we can't see without a microscope. We call the biodigesters dragons because the whole process of making biogas is a lot like a dragon breathing out fire. The microbes that digest the organic matter live inside the dragon's belly. Biogas is a sustainable fuel source because as long as we keep creating food scraps and waste, we can feed it to the dragons and they can keep making energy for us. Let's watch an example of how to feed a biodigester to make biogas.
Manure. So, take a little bit of manure. This is from the dairy cows next door. They very kindly contributed it. So I'll put that in the bucket as well. So now we got our mixture, and that's going to make the archaea very happy, and they're going to give us a lot of gas. So when I add this, it's going to displace. You can see this is the line where there's already water and food and the archaea in there that are making the gas. So when I add this new food in, it's going to go in the bottom, and it's going to push all the effluent, the waste product, out that tube and into there. So we'll be able to see it move through. So now I'm going to add, carefully, and there it's coming out. So now what we'll expect is once the archaea are fed and happy, we'll start filling the gas up into this tube. So we can already see there's some gas in there when I press it down. Looks a little like the deflated tube you might bring to the pool, but there's actually some good biogas in there that we can use to cook some food.
The video you just saw was of a small biodigester in action. Biodigesters can be as big as houses or as small as buckets. All that changes is the amount of waste that goes in and the amount of biogas that is produced. Biodigesters are a lot like cow stomachs. When food goes in a cow stomach, they digest it and it turns into energy. Then the food leaves their stomach as waste. Now let's take a closer look at what goes on inside a digester. In one end, manure, decomposed food, and other organic stuff goes into the digester. The digester, or dragon, then breaks down the food to make biogas. We then collect that biogas to use to make energy, which means we can power our homes with it. The dragon also creates an additional waste product, or effluent, that we can collect out of another tube, and while we can't use this product to make energy, we can use it as fertilizer to use in our farms and gardens. So when we say that dragons eat our garbage, we mean that dragons eat our food waste. Dragons are the biodigesters that produce biogas. These dragons are oxygen-free environments, which is why microbes live inside them. That means the biodigesters are anaerobic. You might consider things like potato peels and animal waste to be garbage, but to the dragons, they see a delicious meal. When they're done eating their meal, aka breaking down the food waste and manure, the digesters produce biogas, which is a lot like a dragon breathing out fire. We collect that biogas and use it for electricity, heat, even cooking. Let's watch an example of cooking with biogas.
I'm out here again to show you the end of the biogas process. We're going to do some cooking over biogas. So I've got my biogas bag full of gas, that's great. I've got a little pump to move the gas to the stove. And I've got my old Chinese biogas stove. So I'm going to flip this on. A little fire. Whoop. There we go. All right. I don't know how well you can see that fire, but it's hot. Okay, got our pot. Time to cook. A little bit of popcorn. Everybody like popcorn? All right. Perfect. Oh, there it goes. Look at that. We call it poop corn. But it doesn't taste like poop, it tastes like popcorn. Whee! So just to wrap up here, we're making biogas energy from waste. So we take waste products and make useful energy. That's pretty cool. You can do this too someday. So the one thing I do want to mention is danger, right? Methane gas is flammable. So we do want to be pretty careful as we do this. Don't try this at home without adult supervision. But otherwise, it's a lot of fun to make biogas from our own waste products. Thanks for tuning in.
That's the end of the video. What have you learned about biogas today? Do you have any questions about how it's made or what we can use it for?